Harry didn't lose control slowly. If this timeline is even partly accurate, he lost it in a single moment with a signature he didn't fully understand.
Can't beat the real story. I mean, that's the excitement of writing these sort of books, that in the end, nothing beats the truth, the real facts.
Family, except for her mother, they're both essentially the same person. So you deserve each other on Christmas.
Tom Bowers, it's called Revenge, Meghan, Harry and the War Between the Windsors. We can speak to the man himself.
No shouting, no dramatic confrontation, just paperwork. According to royal biographer Tom Bowers, that moment came in 2020, the year something was quietly restructured, that now explains far more than people are comfortable admitting. The hotel stays, the separate projects, the return of crisis PR, the growing sense that Harry looks less like a partner and more like someone trying to catch up to decisions already made. Once you see the pattern, it becomes very hard to ignore. None. This isn't coming from TikTok rumors or tabloid whispers. Tom Bowers is the author of Revenge, a book built on interviews with more than 80 people who worked directly with Meghan Markle, many of them long before Prince Harry ever entered her life. Bowers' reputation doesn't come from sensationalism, it comes from timelines. He doesn't ask how people feel, he asks when things changed, who benefited, and what moved quietly in the background while everyone else was distracted. Most people believe the Sussex story turned when Harry and Meghan stepped back from royal life. According to Bowers' analysis, that's not the real turning point. The real shift came afterward, once they arrived in California, and the stakes became financial instead of ceremonial. Netflix talks were already happening. Spotify negotiations followed. Publishing offers appeared. Speaking fees skyrocketed. Charitable branding took shape. And in the middle of that whirlwind, something far more important than interviews or appearances was rewritten behind the scenes: the structure that governed control, ownership, and future earnings. What's critical here is understanding that this wasn't about romance or trust, it was about infrastructure. Who controls the brand? Who owns the intellectual property? Who decides how stories are told, packaged, and monetized? According to Bowers' interpretation, that control was not evenly distributed. Meghan was positioned as the operational center legally, not symbolically, while Harry agreed during a period of intense upheaval. New country, new rules, new pressure, new advisors. It's the worst possible moment to fully grasp long-term consequences. This is where experience becomes everything. People Bowers spoke to about Meghan's first marriage describe an ending that was anything but emotional chaos. It was calculated, every clause reviewed, every scenario anticipated, every revenue pathway protected. The lesson she reportedly carried forward was simple and uncompromising: never lose control of your ability to earn. Harry came from an entirely different world. Royal life doesn't teach you contract leverage. It doesn't teach you brand insulation. It doesn't teach you exit planning. When 2020 arrived with media hostility, financial opportunity, and enormous pressure, one person entered negotiations with experience.
Now, if you were born in the sunny hills of California, your code is 104. It's been that way for
The other entered with trust. Timing is the detail that makes this hard to dismiss. The restructuring didn't happen at the wedding. It didn't happen when life was calm or predictable. It happened when royal protections were gone and Hollywood money was coming in. That's when leverage gets decided. That's when the future is quietly shaped. And once those structures are in place, reversing them is extraordinarily difficult, especially when major projects and millions of dollars are already in motion. By 2022, the public story began to wobble. The massive streaming numbers everyone repeated were never guaranteed cash. They were projections based on delivery.
On polling and media coverage, how would you describe the trajectory of Harry and Meghan's reputations?
Some projects launched, others stalled, some were quietly cancelled. Expectations shrank. And right as that uncertainty became impossible to ignore, a noticeable shift occurred. Meghan began launching ventures tied only to her name, not joint Sussex projects, not shared branding, solo initiatives, lifestyle branding, podcast partnerships, publishing efforts, commercial trademarks, each one structurally separate, each one insulated from joint risk. Financial advisors recognize this behavior immediately. It's not emotional distancing, it's asset separation. It's what people do when they anticipate uncertainty and want to ensure their future income doesn't depend on a shared entity. On its own, it could mean nothing. In context, it becomes part of a broader pattern. Then came the move that made insiders quietly raise their eyebrows. In January, reports surfaced that Meghan had brought back Sunshine Sachs, a firm known less for everyday celebrity publicity and more for crisis management during high-stakes transitions. Hiring them doesn't confirm anything, but people familiar with these situations know the rule. You don't bring in specialists unless you expect turbulence, and when they're brought in early, it usually signals preparation rather than reaction. Around the same time, reports emerged that Harry was...
I think personally, I think they've separated their professional lives, but I think what's really a great problem for them now, as of in the last few weeks, is that Meghan has got no real income anymore. She's finished. A man who she abandoned for months to the media and now presents her mother, Doria, speaking for the first time, telling outright lies about her ex-husband. I mean, this was a calculated attempt against the families.
Tom Bower, the legendary royal author, is sharpening his quill for a new edition of his book set to reveal huge secrets inside Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's marriage.
Spending extended periods away from home, staying at hotels and private clubs. These weren't one-off nights, they were patterns. People tried to minimize it, but the reality is simple. Men in stable marriages don't live out of hotels, and couples actively rebuilding don't usually separate their finances and branding at the same time. Emotional distance and structural separation rarely appear independently of each other. Step back and look at the full picture. A 2020 restructuring that tilted control, separate income streams, independent branding, crisis PR rehired, physical separation rumors. So the question is simple. Is this all coincidence, layered with speculation, or are we watching one of the most calculated exits in modern celebrity history being assembled in real time? Because if Tom Bower's timeline is right, the ending may already be written, and Harry may only now be realizing which story he agreed to tell.
The Sussex overdrive is unbelievable, but I mean, I don't think that he is going to get back in. I mean, I think that there are two reasons. One is I think that William wouldn't allow it. And secondly, the moment he got back to America, he immediately promoted Disney and his trip to Disney World, which showed that he is very commercially minded, which we'll get into later on, which makes it impossible for him. And of course, Meghan wouldn't come back to Britain.
And
Meghan herself.
In the months before she met Harry, was setting up paparazzi pictures in London. She now acts as if the paparazzi are literally the devil incarnate.
She begged the paparazzi to photograph her, and they wouldn't. And when they did, she says, "Oh, I don't want to, I'm hurt." And that ridiculous story about how they first met, the whole thing was a tissue of inaccuracies, to be polite.
Well, because what do you make of that? Because as you know, Harry...
Last year, she was about to promote her Netflix series and didn't want to, firstly, be seen with Harry, and secondly, didn't want to go somewhere where she'd appear cheap and give it gratis. And this year, she is desperate to be seen. And that's why she turned up. So I think she has a major problem, financially and professionally. And I think that Harry has a problem because he's lost his charity centre Bailey in Africa. He had better up, and all these commercial deals are declining. I think that his reputation is somewhat toxic, and I think Invictus is his only lifeline, and there'll be problems with that too.
I mean, we've seen people leaving Invictus recently. I think that's you mentioned the Disney special. Does the Disney special at all